Well, friends, so one of the suggestions that I had put in the survey that some of you filled out a little while ago, uh, there was interest in being able to create a user interface in Matlab. And so what I'm going to show you how to do with application to what we've just done in lab is use or set up a user interface for the Fauxduino. So I'm going to create just a few buttons that does the home function, so I can click and have it go to home, do the fast move, the coordinated move, and probably toggle whether or not the um, the table is enabled or not. So what we can do under the apps tab, so normally you're under the editor tab, go to the apps tab, and we can say, let's design an app. And the designer start page will show up. Let's size it right. And then all I'm going to do is just a blank app. There's a bunch of other options in here. Let's keep it simple. The first thing that we need to be able to do is create a Fauxduino object. Now, the way that this is set up for the app designer is it's all the object-oriented approach, kind of the way that we've been addressing, or the same way that we've been addressing the Fauxduino or the MechaGod class or the Arduino class. Those were objects that we created, and then we access methods and properties on there. So methods are the functions that sit on the object, properties are the variables that sit on the object. So in here, we need to create a Fauxduino object by pressing a button so that we can start plotting with it. So let's create a button or drag a button over. And over on the right, you can see that we can put in information about it. You can modify it however you want. All I'm going to say is create Fauxduino, right? And hit enter, not there. Click somewhere else, and it'll put that name in. And then what we want to do is create a callback, and that's allowing us to register when it gets pressed to perform some action. So let's right click on it and say callbacks and add push button function callback. And that's going to bring us over to the code view. Let me scale this up a little bit. That's going to bring us over to the code view. And it was only letting us focus, or it focuses us on this one particular part, right? And what we want to do in here is create something like my faux object is, and then we can type in the Fauxduino. I don't know why they have code complete in here, but not in the regular editor. We can create a new Fauxduino object just like we were doing in our other programs. So we've got the Fauxduino object. The problem is that once we press that, there's no way to reference that back unless we store it as a property or variable sitting on the object, which in this case is the app that we're creating. So we need to create a property where we track this Fauxduino object. So over here, we can click on properties, and I believe it's right here. Now add a property. So let's add one. And in this property, I'm going to call it my faux object, right? This is just a variable that we're going to use to store the Fauxduino object. And we'll then be able to use any of the functions or methods on that object when we want to. And then here, if you look down here, you can see what they've done is the object that is important to them is this app, right? It's saying app.UI figure or app.create Fauxduino button. There's all these methods that are being called, and it's sitting on the object, which is in this case is named app. So we need to specify that we want app.myFauxObject because that faux object is the variable or the property sitting on the app object. So we now have a reference to it that we can come back to and use it later. Let's just test the creation of this Fauxduino. we'll save it as flow control. That's a good one. So we've got our single button and we made code for it. Up here is the run button. Let's click on it. It pulls up a window and we just have that one button. What happens if I click on it? It just created a new plot for me, a new Fauxduino object. In fact, I could keep clicking it. It's not advised because we're going to end up with a bunch of Fauxduino objects here. But every time that I click on it, it replaces that previous Fauxduino object. We've got that functionality down. Before I go any further, before I try to add any other buttons, one of the things, if you remember, with the Fauxduino class is we've got a bunch of pin numbers, and also we have to configure these pins before we do any movement. So I'm gonna cheat a little bit. I'm gonna cut and paste this because we're totally gonna use that again. In the app designer, I'm gonna go back to code view, and right below this, I'm going to paste all of that stuff, right? And then instead of the faux object, we actually want app.myFauxObject. So we'll replace that. That's the object reference we want to do. And we're configuring the pins on that particular object, which is sitting on top of the app object. So now we're configuring the pins, which means we can actually do something now. We can move it around, right? And that's what we'll do next. One of the first three, right? We had home, fast move, and coordinated move. So let's do the home function. Drag another button over. You can even align it if you want. We can say home machine. And then we'll right click on it again and say callbacks, add button pushed function callback. And now we've got a new function here, home machine button pushed. That means we can actually have something happen in here. If we go back to what we had for the code, our home function is set up here. I call it right here, right? And so if we grab that and then head back over to the app designer and I put that in, well, I can't pass that the faux object because that doesn't exist in this context, but app.myFauxObject does. XA in this case is our D10. This is why it kind of gets messy. There's a lot of things that I would do differently. We could store all those pin numbers as variables. I'm not going to do that in this case. We're going to keep it simple. We want D9, X step. Oh boy. Oh, they're there. I'm just going to copy those over and do it while you guys can see. X step in this case is D6, X direction, D7, YA is D3, YB is D2, Y step is D5, and Y direction is D4. So in theory, I am now set up to home the machine. Right, so let's save that and then click back on design view. We can click run. It's gonna pop up another designer down here. Let's create a Fauxduino object first and then home the machine. It's going. It's taken a long time. We could do a toggle button and have it disable or enable the plot. That would be good. let's let this home first, and I'll pause. All right, so it's almost there, at least for the X. Now it's moving down in the Y. Move faster. All right, let's implement that disable plot as our next step. All right, so it's there. We can close that now. Let's close down this current version. Grab the app designer again. Let's see, state button. Toggle between two states. There's a radio button. Checkbox. Let's do a checkbox. Plot enabled. Or let's say enable plot. And then we'll add a callback function to that. And what we'll start out with is the assumption that it is enabled. So let's, oh, we get a value here. That's great. That tells us if it's checked or not. So if the value is checked, we want to enable the plot. If it's not checked, then we want to disable the plot. So we can say if value, then we will enable plot, else disable plot. And we can say for the app.myFaux object, enable, oh boy, what did I call it? Enable table plot and disable table plot. So enable table plot, that Fauxduino object back there. And then for the other one, it would be disable table plot. Now this won't work while it's trying to do something, but we can control it otherwise. So we've got that in there. I think it's good to go. Let's give it a try. So first thing is we need to create the Fauxduino. I'm going to, oh, it's not enabled right away, which is problematic because it starts out as enabled. Let's fix that. So it's a checkbox. Let's go back to the design view. Let's check the value because it starts off as enabled, right? We want that to be aligned so that we don't have to implement that being off in the code. So let's run it again. So now we've got this enable plot here. Let's create the Fauxduino first. Oh, what do we got? Index in position 2 is invalid. Array indices must be positive integers. Generate surface data. I am intrigued. Let's try that again. No problem. I don't know what happened there. Let's uncheck enable and then let's click home machine. Now nothing's there, right? We didn't, we heard a click, or at least I did, to say that it hit the end stops, but we don't have a way to update it right now. So let's add a button to manually update the plot. So button, we'll align it nicely and we'll say update plot. And then we'll add another callback function. And then in here, we can say my faux object update table plot. Save it. Let's click run again. Now we can create a Fauxduino. We can uncheck the enable plot. We'll home the machine. It hit the end stops. We can update the plot and it's there. Sweet. All right, so what do we need next? We need a way to move from one position to another. So we need a way to track our current position. And so we need two new variables on the app object. So let's go over to the code view. So let's say, let's add and say property 2 is equal to X position. And we'll say that's 0. And then the other one is the Y position, and that's equal to 0 as well. And so now on those objects, we'll be able to address app.myFauxObject.xPosition or .yPosition, because those are now properties or variables sitting on top of that object. Or sorry, it will be app.xPosition and app.yPosition. So when do we want that to go back to 0? Every time that we home the machine, we want to set those values equal to 0. So let's do that. So let's say app.xPosition and set, after we home the machine, we'll set it to 0, and app.yPosition is equal to 0. So now whenever we go to the home position, those will go to 0 automatically. Now we need some way to input X and Y values. So let's go back and we need a numeric edit field, 2 of them, right? So let's in this one, we will call it target X. And we'll start it at 0. The limits are 0 and infinity. And then we've got that. So let's now say, let's add a callback value to that, because whenever that changes, we want to set some target value. So we get a value back. We need to store that somewhere. So we've got the X position and Y position. Let's come up with 2 variables, X target and Y target. So for that particular one, we want to say app.xTarget is equal to the value. And then we want to go back and create a Y target one as well. So edit numerical field. And I'm not going to care about the alignment at the moment. Although it probably will bother me forever that I didn't align those. Okay, I'll fix it. All right. So we've got a target X and a target Y, which is still, oh boy. Nope. Okay. So we've got those. Now, this is not a class in UI design, Dr. Patterson. So now we've got a way to set those values, at least for the X. Let's do the same thing that we did for the let's do the same thing for the Y that we did for the X and set that target value, right? So app.yTarget in this case is equal to value. Now we need a button to either do a fast move or a coordinated move. Let's go back to design view and make a new button and call this fast move. And we'll add a callback. And then in there, we want to grab the full object. But we want to say fast move, and we'll call the function. We need x0 and y0, which will be x position, app.x position, app.y position. Our x1 and our x2 are app.xTarget and app.yTarget. And then we can pass it the Fauxduino object, our x step, x direction. Do I have those? I do. Just need to get rid of 2 and 3. And then our step size, I'm going to hard code this one in there, 009375. Now this is going to pass back a new x and y, right? And we know that. We know that this passes back x new and y new. We need to store those because we need to keep those as x position and y position. So we'll go to the next line and we'll say app.x position is equal to x new, and then app.y, that's not right, position is equal to y new. Long capitalization here. Okay, it's giving me a warning just simply to say that I could put a semicolon at the end. So let's go back to the design view. And in theory, we should be able to do a fast move now. So let's run this. Bring it up here. Now we want to create a Fauxduino object. I'm going to disable the plot, home the machine, update it. Now let's choose a spot. Let's say I want to move 5 inches in the X and 3 inches in the Y. And then update the plot again. That's pretty cool. So we've got fast move. Now doing coordinated move is going to be just as easy, or even easier, because we can say, let's add a new button. And say coordinated move. What happens if we put it on center lined and everything? Let's add a callback. And then in here, we want to do the same thing that we did there, except we're, instead of fast move, we're going to do coordinated move. Right? And then we need to use the new X and Y positions and save it back to the app. The one thing that would be nice is being able to enable the visuals or the tracker. So let's first test coordinated move. We won't, actually, let's not test it because we won't know if it works or not. Let's add another checkbox. And call it enable tracker. No, there we go. All right, let's add a callback to that. And if the value is true, we want to enable it. If it's false, we don't want it. So if value else, so if we want to enable it, we'll say app.myFauxObject.enable tracker. And then for next one, we will disable tracker. Okay. Seems easy. Seems too easy. Let's try it all out. Let's run it. Let's create the Fauxduino object. Let's disable the plot, home the machine, update the plot. Got that. Let's move, do a fast move. Actually, let's enable the tracker right now. And then we'll do a fast move to 5, 3 again, and update the plot. So it moved at a diagonal at first and then horizontally to finish out the rest of the X. Now, what if we wanted to move to, let's say, X is 3 and Y is 6, and do a coordinated move. And then update the plot, and we have a straight line. I think this is cool. I don't really care if you don't. I'm glad that you guys agreed this was an interesting topic. So now we have control over the Fauxduino, or if this was the physical XY table, all you need to do is swap out the call or the object that is the Fauxduino and have it be an Arduino, and it would actually move the XY table just like you're seeing right now. So that is a first go at a crash course in creating an app or UI in Matlab. Entertaining. See you later.